Earful Tower listeners, it's another Monday. You're about to hear, I'm not going to muck around this week, you're about to hear an episode from Katy and Dominic from another podcast. It's called The Europeans Podcast. It's quite cool. It's kind of like this show, but based on Europe instead of based on Paris and France. And I talked to them a little bit about themselves, but also about France's place in Europe. So have a listen to that, and be sure to hang around at the end when I've got Lina, my fiance, back in the studio to discuss the overwhelming response we've got to the Honeymoon season of the Earful Tower, which has a new start date, and there's been a few more generous offers coming in from you lovely listeners. So, enjoy this week's episode, and let's get straight into it.
One man, one country, one red scooter. Here's the Earful Tower with Oliver G.
Katy and Dominic.
Hello, Oliver.
Hello.
Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. We made it up the stairs.
Yeah, yes, it's true. 7 floors.
Yeah, it's not no mean feat.
I feel like of all of your guests, we were the ones who maybe weren't going to make it. But
You
we
think?
are here.
No, the truth is, once we had a guest who was an elderly chap, and we had to stop a lot of the way up there, and I felt guilty. And now I have a rule: all over 60s, I won't invite them up. I'll go to them. That's the rule.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you weren't going to have them on the show.
No.
full stop.
Rather the
Very
opposite. I
ageist.
will go to them. You guys must be the youngest people I've had on the show. How old are you guys?
I'm 30 now. We're both 30.
We're both 30.
30. Well, congratulations on your
30.
30th birthday.
Thank
you.
you.
And we should say that you guys, we're all podcasters here. You guys
We are, yeah.
doing it somewhat, in a sense, somewhat similar podcasts in that you're figuring out Europe.
Yeah, I guess we're kind of doing a similar thing to what you're doing, but on a ridiculously large scale.
Can you say pan-European? Is that what that
You
means?
can say
Yeah.
pan-European,
So,
yes.
You actually wanted to call this podcast, I think, the Pan-Europeans at one point, didn't you? Or something like that?
Maybe. I think I wanted it to have as good a pun as this one.
We can never beat your puns, Oliver.
No.
No, we are just called the Europeans.
I
It's very on the
put a
nose.
lot of time into the puns and the headlines. I mean, the tote bag that you guys have, fresh off the what do you say? Fresh off the racks? No, what? Fresh off the
Hot off the
fresh
press?
off
hot off the press. How do you like that one? The lunch pack of
It's
Notre
I'm
Dame.
just looking at one of Oliver's tote bags now. It's beautiful. The lunch pack of Notre Dame? Is that
Notre
what they
Dame,
say?
that's the one.
Notre Dame.
Not bad, huh?
It's beautiful.
Anyway, we're not here to discuss puns. We're here to talk a little bit about France and Europe. But first, your show. So the idea is that you guys, because maybe the listeners of this show will like, who knows, maybe they'll like your show as well.
We hope so.
What do you want to say to the Earful Tower listeners?
Well, if you like what Oliver does, then yeah, as he says, you might like what we do. We take a kind of semi-serious, semi-lighthearted look at what's going on in Europe. We call up 1 or 2 people around the continent across Skype. I live in Amsterdam and Katy lives in Paris. So we're, very pan-European. And we try to pick apart what's going on and we never talk about Brexit.
We never talk about Brexit.
Is
We're
that a
two
rule?
Brits.
You wait till you're on
Yeah.
another person's show and then you talk about Brexit.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
going to spend the whole of the,
The
show
B
talking
word.
about Brexit.
Well, I'm not going to let you. what I thought we'd do, though, I thought we'd talk about, because Dominic, you're an opera singer, am I
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And Katy, you're a journalist in Paris.
I am indeed.
So between the two of you, I was going to say the three of us, but I'll just let the two of you do it. Now, we're going to talk a bit about France in Europe, France's place in Europe, how Europe perceives France. A little bit of a serious episode, but still maybe we'll throw in a few stereotypes and sun-soaked terraces and the sort. But let's break it down from the beginning. Now, a lot of people listening to this are maybe in Australia, America, who knows, and they don't know much about France and how other Europeans look at it as a country. Let's get from the basics, the beginning. What do people think about this country?
I think, I am a journalist. I cover politics a lot. So I spend quite a lot of my time following President Macron and what he is trying to do in Europe and Europe's response to that. It was really, really interesting watching him get elected, because, especially as a Brit, because when he got elected last year, it was pretty much just after Brexit, and Macron ran on this super pro-European platform, right? He came in here saying, I think Europe is really good. I feel really positive about it. And at the time, it was a really unfashionable thing to be saying. Even in the French presidential election, there was a lot of Euroscepticism, a lot of negativity about Europe. And he
People
came
were
in
calling
here.
for a Frexit, weren't they?
There were some candidates calling for Frexit, and Marine Le Pen stopped short of that, but she wanted to pull out of the euro, and there was very much that strong strain of that. So Macron comes in and he's all super pro-European. He literally walked onto the stage for his victory speech, followed by strains of the European anthem, Ode to Joy.
That's right.
Which was an amazing symbolic
When
thing.
he walked past the Louvre, right past the glass pyramid, right?
Yeah, very long walk. I always felt he should have done it on like a little Segway
On
or
a
something.
Vespa.
Would have been a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But yeah, so from the very beginning, he's been really super pro-European, but also really wanting to shake it up. Like, I think especially after Angela Merkel, the German leader, has been kind of out of the picture for the last few months because she was struggling to form a government. Macron has been really front and center. I am the most dynamic, young, active leader in Europe, and I really want to shake things up here. Now, how he's perceived in Europe, that's a totally different question. I think there's quite a lot of people that probably don't feel that positive about him, especially if you look east in Europe, like countries like Hungary especially, where they've just got this Prime Minister, Viktor Orban, who just won another term. He's very, very sort of anti all of that. He's kind of anti everything that Macron stands for. So it's not a message that's going down well everywhere.
And what do we think about, for example, Dominic, you live elsewhere in Europe. What's the word on the street? What do people think? Just your typical...
What, about France or about Macron?
Both.
Well,
let's start with France.
Yeah, about France. I was just talking to Katie about this earlier, actually, that I think French people that are kind of sometimes the worst people at speaking English amongst Europe
I
think
they've
Western
literally been ranked as the
Have they?
worst. Yeah.
Yeah.
In Europe, yeah.
And I don't know whether it's because of that or as well as that, but they are also kind of thought of as very proud about Frenchness and therefore maybe not always totally welcoming to other European cultures. I think that's the kind of stereotype. And when I meet French people who live in the Netherlands where I live or in the UK where I used to live, I sometimes find that French people are expats are a little bit embarrassed about their Frenchness and kind of hide it. I met someone the other day and I was like, "Where are you from?" And he was like, "France." And I was like, "Wow, I can't tell. You speak really good English. You've got no accent." And he was like, "I know, I've been spending 5 years trying to get rid of my French accent so no
Really?
one knows." There was
That's
like that
quite
much
sad.
shame, which is sad. Because obviously France is famous for wonderful things. Like, it's amazing culture. It's beautiful.
Baguettes.
The coast, it's wonderful. I don't know, wine?
Wine, food,
Yeah.
Lavender.
sun-soaked terraces.
Yeah, sun-soaked
Yeah.
terraces, all that kind of stuff, yeah.
So
and then there's... which is unusual. When did you meet this guy? Was this before?
this was a few months ago, actually,
Yeah.
after the election. So, France has a funny place within the continent.
I wonder
think.
how much that the language affects that.
I think a huge part. I mean, we've had quite different experiences, I think, as foreigners living in our respective countries, France and Netherlands. Like, for me, straight off from day one, it was very, very important for me to learn the language. Like, I can't get healthcare. I can't get, find a flat. Stuff like that was really, really hard without having a basic command of the language. And in the Netherlands, you could live for years in the Netherlands.
Well,
without
Netherlands is
speaking
the
much Dutch.
opposite end of the spectrum,
Yeah.
right? It's it's them or Sweden that are the top English speakers in Europe, right?
Yeah, they are amazing. Although, actually, I was surprised there are still quite a few things, like around healthcare and insurance stuff, that if you don't have someone who can translate it for you in the Netherlands, it's still a bit of a problem. So, yeah, and there is pride. I mean, within the opera world, which is, I'm an opera singer, France is thought of as like the most protectionist of the opera cultures. Like, it's a very international career being an opera singer. You particularly within Europe, like you go and travel around and sing in all over the place. But people always say, "Oh, I mean, don't bother trying to make it in France
Really?
because they just employ French people."
Interesting. They kind of like that with their language. They're very protective about the French language. There's these, I don't know, Dominic, if you've heard or if some of the listeners have heard of this Académie Française, the guardians of the language. And when a foreign word like hashtag or email creeps into the country, they say they ban it from usage, and they won't put it in the dictionaries, and they come up with a French equivalent, as ridiculous as it might sound, you know?
Yeah, I think French people are defensive of their language in a way that is quite hard for us to understand as native English speakers. Like, even in Brussels, within the European Union, it's very important for them to see French as like an official language, and every document has to be translated into French as well as English and German. Like, it's a huge thing for them. And we talk about the language here a lot more than I think we talk about the English language. You know, there's always these news stories about, is there too much English creeping into the French language? The way that we use gender in the French language became a big political thing a couple of months ago. Like, we started having these huge debates about it. It's just this huge thing. And I think that dates back hundreds and hundreds of years. Like, French used to be the language of world diplomacy, if we're looking at, like, the 16th century. It's not anymore, and I think there are some people that maybe aren't that happy about that.
Do you know anything about Esperanto?
The language that's meant to be the English easiest language.
Well, yeah, it was a language, if you don't know, that was like designed in the late 19th century by this really like ideological guy who wanted to create a universal language that was really easy to learn. Sure. It almost became, I think, the official language of the League of Nations and the official diplomatic language, and it was blocked by the French.
Really?
Yeah, because they
they
didn't like that. So if the French hadn't been defensive about that, then maybe.
I even remember at the Olympic Games, the last Summer Olympics, they had French people whose job was to go around and make sure all the signs were in French because it was the second official language of the Olympics. So beside the host country's language, everything had to be in English and in French, and people were going around saying, whoa, this isn't good enough. There's no French here, and then they, rectified it. So yeah, there is a
and it's the same with Eurovision, isn't it? That I don't know whether they still do, but they used to always do everything in French and English.
Yeah. The winners were always announced, or the shortlist.
Which is weird because that's because France pays for it as well. France is one of the 4.
Yeah, but there are other
Spain as well. Yeah, that's true. Hey, I don't know, but maybe that's a whole podcast episode in itself, how the French language affects the French mentality.
Well, and Macron has been like talking about how he's thinking it could eventually become the top language of Europe again, hasn't he?
Which is kind of interesting because Macron is like the French president who's been the most comfortable speaking English.
What do we think of Macron's English, by the way? Let's have some honest Europeans podcast feedback on this.
I think it's very good. I think it's certainly much better than any other.
I mean, it's no doubt very good, but let's get nitpicky here. Does it sound German? Does he lisp?
Definitely lisp, which I quite like. I think that's quite sweet.
Right.
I think there are some quirks to it, some odd pronunciations of words. I remember he gave a speech where he was talking about how American scientists and engineers should come to...
What was that? Engineers.
Engineers should come to France.
Engineers.
And I actually taught an English class, and some of these kids had picked up this word, engineers. And I was like, don't say that.
Oh, wow.
And they're like, but Macron said it. It's like, I know, it's wrong.
How interesting.
Yeah. No, in general, I think his English is very good. It's certainly... I saw Justin Trudeau yesterday for an event.
Yeah.
And him
you
speaking
say it like
French.
You had a coffee with him.
I saw Justin Trudeau, just hanging out.
How was he?
She wishes.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
I volunteered for that job straight away. My boss was like, who wants to go and see Trudeau? I was like, me please. So I went, and it's very strange. It's kind of the opposite. It's like a mirror reflection of Macron speaking English, hearing Trudeau speaking French.
Oh, really?
Weird accent. I'm sorry, I'm going to get a lot of hate mail now from people from Quebec.
From French Canadians, yeah.
Send all hate mail. What's the
same mail to Katy at Europeans Pod on Twitter?
No need to send to the Earful Tower. And we'll talk about your podcast in a second, but one more question about France, Katy, specifically for you, being a journalist here. What's exciting? What's happening on the horizon that we need to be looking forward to reading about?
Oh, well, I think Macron's plans for Europe, I know it's not like a very sexy thing and it sounds very abstract, but I think that's going to be a thing to watch for the next few months. I think it's an amazing time to be a journalist in France. Like, I'm really super happy to be here covering France as a foreign correspondent at the moment because, like, everything is changing. This president has come in. He wants to shake up everything. If you just look at this battle that he's having with the rail unions at the moment, we're having 3 months of strikes on the train network at the moment.
And I meant to getting back to Amsterdam by train tomorrow for a premiere that I'm performing at.
Oh my goodness.
Really nervous.
Dominic's never going home.
You can borrow my Vespa. You get there.
I might need it. Lina, can you drive me?
We need to test if it can do long distances. Yeah. You have to bring it back, though.
It's a good time to do it. But I think it's just a really interesting time to be watching France in general. Like, loads of stuff is happening. And not everyone is happy with what he wants to do. Like, he's going to face opposition to what he wants to do.
And
he's very ambitious. So.
And politics aside, there's the Olympics coming up.
2024. It's going to be very exciting.
That's going to be here before we know it. And that's changing Paris. A lot of people listening to this show love Paris. So do you know about how Paris is changing already for the Olympics?
Well, one thing that I'm working on a story. I'm just going to give it away now and everyone's going to probably steal it. But I'm working on a story on the what's being dubbed the anti-PP plan of Paris,
right.
Which is, okay, Paris is a beautiful city, as all of your listeners know. I mean, you wouldn't be listening to the show if you didn't absolutely love Paris.
Or maybe they like the host.
It could be partly you.
Oh, yeah.
You do have
Maybe they
certain
like the
charms.
guests.
There's
Maybe
also
they
us.
No, go on.
I've kind of lost my train.
I threw you
PP.
off. You're talking about the anti-PP plan.
Right, yes, just how, Paris is physically very beautiful. But it does sometimes smell pretty bad in the summer. And there's this whole kind of culture of men just peeing in the street. It's not as bad as it used to be a few years ago. But it's still an issue. And with thousands and thousands of people set to be coming in, the City Hall wants to do something to fix it. So at the moment, they're trying out all these quite new, exciting types of urinal street toilets.
Exciting urinals.
Very exciting urinals. They've got ones called it's called a Yuri Trottoir, I think it's called, which is like a kind of it's a box of compost,
Yeah.
and it's got flowers on top. And the idea is that the gentleman concerned can wee into the box, and it feeds the compost underneath, because apparently urine has got lots of like nitrates in it and phosphates.
That's genius. But
Yeah.
doesn't it just mean men are going to be like peeing in any plant pot they see? 'Cause they'll think, oh, this is one of them.
That's exactly right, really, isn't it?
Hopefully not. But anyway, they're trying out various different things, which I think is going to be
So this is
fascinating.
what we've got to look forward to in France in the coming years. Is new.
Yeah,
new
well
Euro-
done, Katie. You've answered the question really well.
No, that is true. That's true.
No, but it's a big thing. Every summer people come to Paris and they get really... I mean, people are shocked by how bad this
Well, there's
is.
the,
Yeah,
Paris,
it
the
is.
Paris I think it's called the Paris syndrome, is especially I think in Japan,
Right.
Japanese women who'd come with these lofty expectations of how amazing this city is, and they come, maybe they get off at Gare du Nord where there's people urinating, where there's homeless people, beggars and all that, and then they start sort of fainting like sheep because they're so like sheep.
Fainting like sheep.
There's,
Sheep
I know
do
why I said
faint
that. There
a
are,
lot.
there are fainting sheep. You should anyone listening, look it up on YouTube. There's a type of sheep that faints when you frighten it, and their legs go stiff and they fall over. That's what's happening with these Japanese women. No, but it's so different. It's obviously they're not fainting like that, but they feel that it's so far from what they expected that they really don't like it, and they end up going home feeling like they've not got what they signed up for. You
Yeah.
know?
But the mayor in general, I think it's quite interesting. She's really trying to tidy the city up, make it a lot more green. She's really into cycling. She's had kind of mixed results on that. Like she had a lot of problem. She tried to like pedestrianize this massive stretch of river, road down by the river, and she's had loads of opposition from essentially angry motorcyclists.
Down on the right bank there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the people that live in the city like it, and then the people
I
that
love
live
it.
out.
It's fantastic.
Do you live in the city?
Yeah.
Yeah, see,
And I'm a
I said,
cyclist.
I said that. Yeah, I said the same thing to someone. They said, "Yeah, well, you don't live outside the city. You don't rely on that road to get into work, do you?" And I said, "No, I just go for strolls
It's
with a
beautiful.
coffee."
It's so nice.
Anyway,
Can I come and stay with you, Katie, in 2024? Because the London Olympics, being in 2012, was like the best time of my life.
because
The atmosphere in the city was amazing. I'm really interested to see how it will be here, because in London, which is a place where people don't say hello to each other on the
Right.
street, like you just get to where you're going, like it's really cutthroat. Suddenly everyone was like saying hello to each other and being
Wow.
so
Do
you think
friendly.
so?
Yeah, I had the best time, the best summer of my life.
Because I was very tired that summer. I had the Olympics. I was a correspondent in London at the time, and we had the Olympics, and we had Royal Jubilee or something. Can't even remember. Was it
you
a
mean
Royal
the
Baby?
Tube Olympics?
Jubilympics. That was it. So I was just really like tired and like harassed all the time. I didn't get to experience any of this fun that you're talking about.
I lived in Sydney in 2000, and I thought it was like what you said, Dominic. It was really people. I felt like people wanted to be good hosts for the foreign guests, so they'd be saying, "Oh, you need help getting on that train?" You know, kind of. They were. I mean, I was younger at the time, but I kind of remember it being really friendly.
Yeah, in London they actually got loads of volunteers who employed them for exactly that purpose, to like be welcoming, basically, which was just so nice. And we thought, well, can we keep this?
It'll be very interesting to see if that happens here, because obviously Parisians, similar to Londoners, don't really have that reputation of being super friendly.
True.
But I like to think that maybe Olympic fever will spread, and that will happen here as well.
It's also a good time to buy an apartment in Paris, rent it out when the Olympics are on.
Think of the
Yeah,
money.
I'm thinking long term
yeah.
investment to get that extra couple of euros. I'd like to finish up by talking about your podcast. I mean, if my thinking is anyone that's listened this far into this episode of the Earful Tower is probably thinking, "God damn, I like these two guests," so they'll probably like your show. So you're talking to them now. What have you got to say to these listeners? Why should they jump over to your ship? I mean, you can have one foot in each ship.
Yeah, they can.
I like to. I mean, your show comes out on a Monday, so
That's
when they're
true.
done with their Monday commute, they can just switch over to us on a Tuesday.
Hey,
Simple
that's
as.
a good idea.
I think what I would say is, if you like Oliver's show, if you like interesting conversations with interesting people who really know a place, then you'll probably like ours too. It's the same kind of idea. every week we call up interesting people who are doing interesting stuff around this bigger area, which we call Europe. And we've had all kinds of people on. We had a couple of German translators whose job is to translate Donald Trump. We literally had this guy who was like the voice of Donald Trump on German public television.
Wow.
It was fascinating just talking about like, what is that experience like? And he was not a massive fan of Donald Trump. And that was a very, very strange experience for him. We've had chefs on the show. We've had writers. We've had...
The international editor of Vogue, Susie Menkes, we had a few weeks ago.
That was fun, talking about like the difference between British fashion and French fashion.
So we talk about like some pan-European issues, and then we'll like hone in on one country and like find out about what's been happening in the recent elections in Hungary. And it turns out quite a lot has been happening.
Yeah.
So yeah, we personally feel like it enriches us. It's fun, but it's really nice learning about all these countries that don't necessarily get as much oxygen in the national and international news, because Trump and Brexit take up so much space.
Yeah.
And you do the positive stuff too.
Yeah, we do.
We do. It's not like 30 minutes of misery every week.
We end each episode with a happy ending. So we find a weird or funny happy story, or I do, it's my job, from across the continent, and I surprise Katie, and usually she annoys me in telling me that she knew about it already. But hopefully you won't. You won't ruin my game.
No, the tone of the whole thing in general is not supposed to be serious at all. Like one of the reasons we wanted to do the show was that there's quite a few podcasts out there about European politics, but they're all super serious and like,
right.
We're going to interview a European commissioner this week, and that is really not what we wanted to do. Like, Europe is about so much more than people that wear suits in Brussels. It's a place that we live that is a really super interesting, beautiful place to live, and we just wanted to explore that a little bit.
Explore the variety and find out what connects us.
Mm-hmm.
And just in case anyone was thinking that your show was serious, I've brought it down a few notches in an episode that maybe has or hasn't aired at the time that people are listening to this. I was on your show.
Yes, so...
I used the past tense. It hasn't happened yet. It's kind of weird.
So yeah, the next episode will feature Oliver and his wonderful fiancée, Lina.
Talking about that excellent Tour de France that they're going to do.
That's actually what I'm going to end up on, is talking about that tour. Amour de France, one could even call it. And one does sometimes.
Oh.
But I thought, because you guys both know France in terms of having traveled, maybe even better than I do. So what I'm starting to do is ask the guests for some tips. So I was wondering if you guys could give me a tip that I should see on this heart-shaped journey around France for season 4 of the Eiffel Tower.
Well, we talked about this a little bit in our episode that we did with you, but I think we both agreed you should hit up the Calanque.
Yeah.
Well, I think off Marseille would be very nice. You went a little bit further away, didn't you?
Cassis, yeah. It's so beautiful. This bit of coast, like rocky coast, where you can hire a little boat and just take your own little path through the sea.
So
and
what is it? It's like the Calanque is like
water.
it's like cliff kind of.
It's cliffs that has
people jump into the sea off them.
Yeah,
kind of
people
thing?
do jump into the sea, but there are also little natural bays that you can only access either by climbing really precipitously or taking a boat.
Right.
I'd recommend the boat option because then you can just like go and sit in the middle of the ocean in the sun. And if you need somewhere to stay, then I was working in Aix-en-Provence, which is another amazing city you should go to. I was staying just outside that city in this amazing farmhouse with crazy French philosopher man and his family.
Put me in touch.
So fun. I will.
Yeah.
He was amazing.
Don't you think Aix-en-Provence is one of the nicest places to say?
Yeah.
Aix-en-Provence.
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 Yeah.
The words are nice, and it also sums up these images of like lavender fields and delicious long lunches,
And rosé.
rosé wine, 3 o'clock in the afternoon,
And a wonderful open air opera festival during the summer if you're there.
So what sort of opera?
Nice.
What sort of opera are you doing?
I do loads of different types of opera. At the moment, I'm doing quite a lot of contemporary opera.
Yeah.
So really out there stuff. I'm just about to go off to Munich. But yeah, Aix-en-Provence has one of the biggest opera festivals in the world, in fact. And it happens in this incredible old courtyard in between an old palace. And they've built this open air theatre which has just like a naturally amazing acoustic.
I think I've seen pictures of this.
Yeah,
before.
it's so beautiful. It's worth going to have a look at it. Even
When's
if
the festival?
The festival is July. So
I'm gonna miss it,
yeah,
Dominic.
yeah.
Damn it. Okay, but your tip about the place, what is it, Cassis?
Cassis.
That's Cassis. It's perfect because the love heart shape basically will go right down to there.
Great.
It's the bottom, you know.
And cassis is where you get, isn't that where
Creme
the
de
liquor?
cassis.
Creme de cassis, which you put in with champagne.
make a nice little kir drink.
Yeah.
So blackcurrant liqueur and white wine on top. It kind of tastes like Ribena or blackcurrant squash for adults.
That's
It's
nice.
delicious.
You know, there could be a trip that someone could do. Maybe you guys could do it for your season, whatever your next season is you go around Europe and you visit the places that make the drink or the food. So you go to like Camembert for cheese. And then you go to I don't know what they have in the other countries, but you know, you find those, whatever you call them, the places named, the food named after places. Wouldn't that be great?
All the cheeses like Gouda. You go to Gouda.
We could.
Yeah, we're easy in the Netherlands, right?
I'm just
You
trying
go
to
to
think.
Black Forest for the Black Forest chocolate in Germany.
Edam. There's a lot of cheeses you could do.
Oh, what's Kendall mint cakes?
No, thank you.
No, that's a horrible
Let's not
British
bother
thing.
explaining what that was.
That's something for all of us to think about, I think, traveling around Europe or the world looking for food and drink. But I'll have to leave it on that note. Thank you for coming in, Dominic and Katy. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, and best of luck with the rest of your podcast and everything that goes with it.
Thank you very much,
too.
Oliver. Same to you.
You're listening to the Earful Tower podcast.
So that was the guys from the Europeans podcast, and I'm here at the end of the episode, as promised, to talk a little bit about the upcoming scooter trip, the honeymoon season that I mentioned in the show. I'm here with Lina.
Hi.
How you doing?
Pretty good, thank you.
Did you enjoy that episode?
I love that podcast.
Good
so,
podcast, yeah.
yes,
We're going to be on it tomorrow as well,
we are.
talking about this trip.
Yep.
Which my idea is that we're going to give the listeners an update every week about what what's new on the plan.
And it's necessary because, whoa, what a week.
Whoa, what a week. I've never been so overwhelmed with emails, comments, messages, blog comments from the listeners about a story as I have about the honeymoon season story. I thought we'd just discuss
Really?
some of it. Yeah,
Is
it's absolutely
Well,
been-
it is overwhelming.
So thank
from
you
what
to
I think.
I literally can't respond to them all.
Yeah,
There's too many.
and that must be a good thing.
But I am
just
reading
must
them.
be.
I am reading them all, and it is a good thing. And you guys who are sending kind wishes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The big news is, I suppose, that we have a start date for it now.
We do, officially.
Thanks to, it's the Airbnb up in Chantilly,
Exactly.
which we'll get into the details of soon. But that's going to be the first stop north of Paris on the Love Heart tour.
Mm-hmm.
August 15th.
August 15th
Yeah.
is the big bang.
That's the big bang.
The day of the big... Well, I mean, yes.
So August
Stop.
15th, the day of the big bang. And I thought maybe you'd like to say some of the emails that you enjoyed.
Well,
Seemingly, specifically, one of your requests seemed to turn into a...
apparently my quite a few letters or emails, messages have picked up on my desire to milk a French cow.
Une vache.
Une vache
French vache.
française. Much to my delight, and I think we have the tally is I think something like 3 or 4 possible cows
Yeah.
on the route.
There's been 3 or 4 emails that have offered suggestions. Nothing concrete, but
Nothing
very
concrete,
firm
no.
suggestions all over the country where you can milk your cow, including Normandy,
Yes.
the south.
I wonder what French cows are called, like names. I know in Sweden they're often called like flora, like flower.
Yeah. In English, they're all
Blenda.
called Daisy.
The old Daisy.
Blender.
Blender. Yep.
Yeah.
That's later for a
So,
hamburger.
what? Okay. So,
Okay.
there's been some nice people who have offered us accommodation. There's been some nice people who have offered us even apple picking and pear picking and stuff like that.
Yes. Oh, it's so exciting.
Nothing's set in stone besides
No.
the first day, really, and the day down in Charente, which we mentioned on the last week's
Yes.
episode.
It's all a bit loose, but a lot of very good ideas.
Yeah, so this was just a chance to say thanks. Oh, one of the big things I want to mention is there were a lot of emails, and one negative one which we should touch on as well. But a lot of emails
Favorite.
saying, Oliver, Lina, come on, guys, all the places you're mentioning are cities. You know, we talked about all these cities, Bordeaux and Montpellier, Marseille, and the people say everything that's between that is where you want to go. And I just want to stress that is the actual plan. Like, I've used these big cities as bullet points so we all know what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's like a rough guideline.
Yeah, but really we are going to be focusing on small towns that maybe you've never heard of or that we've never heard of to get a real sense of the French countryside. But we probably will pop into a lot of places, the big cities, but they're not really that's not really the plan.
I have to say, I just have to mention that right now we are standing in your grandmother Irene's linen cupboard.
Yeah, that's true. It was weird having the guys from the European podcast in here earlier. No, that's not true. Yeah, we're recording
And
this
I
section.
must say, she does have some lovely linen.
It's some good linen. We should take it with us.
I have spotted exactly 3 pieces I might steal.
You get quite easily distracted when we're not in the studio. I've
Well,
noticed.
I am surrounded by fabrics. So.
Anyway, back to the topic at hand.
Back to the topic.
Is
Yes.
there anything else that you've come up with that you want to do?
What do I want to do?
Because I've got one.
Okay, you
I want
start.
to stay in a French chateau. So if anyone out there knows
Okay.
anyone that has a chateau
I
that
can
needs
get on
looking
board with
after,
that.
yeah, that's my goal.
Okay.
You just want to get on board with
I definitely get on board with that to start with.
that? Okay. Well, let's leave it at that.
Let's leave it at that.
But let's
for
also
now.
mention that thanks to the Instagram commenter who listened to the episode with growing concern and alarm for our sanity and well-being.
Staggering alarm.
Yeah, because we're not planning, but I'm afraid, guys, there's not going to be a lot of planning in this trip. We want it to be really spontaneous.
There
We
will
want it-
be, but there won't be.
Yeah, there's going to be...
It's going to be enough to be exciting and get people get us excited about the trip. And
If
the
we come to
idea.
a fork in the road and one looks less travelled by God, we're going to take that road.
Yeah, the blue pill or the red pill kind of
Exactly.
situation.
Yeah. We love our red pills.
Yes.
Anyway, that's just a little taste of what's coming up. Hope you enjoyed today's episode with the guys
I want to
from the
crochet.
Europeans. What?
No, wait. I want to do French lace. I want to see how they make French lace.
Okay, let's
That
come up
is-
with the last minute.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a
Buzzer
last
beater.
minute buzzer beater.
So anyone
Exactly.
that has any French lace farms out there and they want us, we'll swing through. Anyway, that's been today's episode. There'll be more throughout the week on Facebook, Instagram, all over those places. New YouTube channel. And, well, yeah, as usual, keep sending your emails because I absolutely have loved reading them and reading them out to Lina.
Please keep them coming.
And once
They
again,
help.
Yeah, they do. They make
They
us feel like we're
really
not
help.
insane for this crazy
Well,
plan.
some make us feel insane.
One
but
has.
it's good to keep an eye on reality.
And listen to the podcast, the Europeans podcast tomorrow, where we're going to talk a little bit more about the trip, I think. Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys next Monday. Thanks for listening.
Bye.